and reduce the entire career of my recent unique self to the compulsion of some high sentence in his Smeletian diary. A.K. Ramanujan can sometimes become somewhat difficult to comprehend, to understand, to interpret, to read. He never got the sort of recognition he deserved in India, and he felt very bitter about it. One of the reasons for this was that poetry, which is difficult to comprehend, to interpret, is not the cup of tea of the Indian reader. And A.K. Ramanujan can sometimes become at least slightly difficult, as in the case of the present lines. We shall try to interpret the lines as best as we can. The entire career of my recent unique self. Perhaps Ramanujan here alludes to the massive changes that took place in his life after he moved to the United States. In another poem, in Still Another View of Grace, A.K. Ramanujan refers to himself as being bred Brahmin among singers of shivering hymns. Bred Brahmin among singers of shivering hymns. It is the same man who, in the present poem, finds himself in the midst of brandy fumes and cashews. What a dramatic change, what a dramatic transformation. It is probably this transformation that is alluded to by A.K. Ramanujan when he speaks of his recent unique self. There were spectacular changes in the character, in the personality, in the attitudes, in the lifestyles, in the life, in the identity of A.K. Ramanujan after he moved from India to the United States, and he has now become my recent unique self. When contrasted against what he had been while in India, he has become a unique self. The entire career of my recent unique self to the compulsion. To compel means to force, to make someone do something, especially against the person's will. To the compulsion of some high sentence in his Smeletian diary. Rather difficult lines. Smeletian is an adjective, is an epithet. It refers to Samuel Smiles, the Scottish reformer, the Scottish writer, campaigner, reformer, who believed that problems can be solved not by changing the laws, but by changing our attitudes. I repeat, problems can be solved, social problems can be solved, not by changing the laws, but by changing our attitudes. There is no doubt that the speaker has gone through a Smeletian experience. He has changed his attitudes completely. He has changed his identity completely. He's a different person. He's a unique self right now. Compulsion of some high sentence in his Smeletian diary. The poet says that the trigger for the transformation of his character, personality, attitudes, lifestyle, life, career was probably a single sentence found in a Smeletian diary. In a diary maintained by someone having Smilesian attitudes, or a diary which is permeated with Smilesian thinking. His Smilesian diary. Who is this his? Who is this he? Could be a reference to the speaker's father, because the speaker's father is the last man referred to before this passage. In the previous stanza, we read, Father in a turban. Sepia wedding picture of father in a turban. So this diary could be maintained by the speaker's father. It is Milesian in its content. And the diary contained a sentence which triggered the transformation of the speaker from what he had been to what he is now. Another interpretation is that the he, the his, could be a reference to the poet himself. You must remember that in his diaries, A.K.Ramanujan started maintaining a diary very regularly, right from the age of 20 or something, in which in his diary he repeatedly refers to him not in the first person but in the third person. So his Milesian diary could be a reference to the diary packed with Milesian content maintained by the speaker's father or maintained by the speaker himself. Be that as it may, the speaker has now become a unique self. He has completely changed his identity, his personality, his character, his attitudes. He is no longer what he had been. And your father, gone, irrevocable in age. The poem now jumps from the speaker himself to the speaker's father in law. It is as if the speaker is sandwiched between his own father and his wife's father. A few lines earlier, we had met the speaker's father wearing a turban in a sepia wedding photograph. Then we interacted with the speaker himself. Finally, we now come to the speaker's father in law. And your father, it's love poem for a wife, one. And your father, the speaker's wife's father, gone irrevocable in age. He has become very old and is now irrevocable, beyond change, beyond redemption. He has reached his final transformation. He has reached a stage in which he cannot anymore change.